Action.
Hello, everyone. So this is episode 3 of the
Unoriginal Podcast, and we have a special guest.
I think the name I should use is Yazin Sharif. Yeah, Yazin Sharif, I use that.
Alawi,
Okay.
Habib Galbi, Abu
Abu
Hussein.
Hussein, Mr. Mesopotamia.
So first things first, we want to address why this episode took an extra week to come out.
The allegations are fake.
The allegations are all fake. They've all been dropped. Case has been dropped, so we're good. We're clear. We are back on the go. Adulting
It got in the way.
got in the way. So now we're here.
Yeah.
So what is our topic for discussion for today? What did you want to talk about?
I mean, we could talk about like nostalgia and old things in general. Would that be sufficient for you guys?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that definitely builds up on our last topic, which was it ended off on childhood, but it started with piracy. But
Yeah.
So to you, what makes something nostalgic? What is a classic? What is considered classic to you in terms of media, so such as music, such as any TV show or movie? Just give an example of what makes something classic.
That's a really tough question to answer. I'm not just giving you a politician answer, just to be fair, but it is a very tough question. What makes something classic? And it could really differ, I guess, depending on the medium, right? Some people say Well, I'll give you the example of comparing video game classics to movie classics. Okay.
Okay.
When a movie is a classic, what do you think the age? How old do you think it should be? Because that's one perspective to look at it. Of what considers something classic.
I guess for me, anything that came out before the year 2010, like something that I grew up with.
Okay, I have a more abstract answer for what constitutes a classic. I think it has to be something that's either that should be referenced in other media and should be mentioned long after it was first released.
You know what? I 100% agree. The only reason I ever found out of like older things is because I would watch like TV shows or watch YouTube videos and they would reference these things like, oh, what is this? Right? And it's just I guess you could say something is classic when it's continually referenced in pop culture today. So everyone references Star Wars, right? Star Wars has been like spoiled for like everybody at this point, right?
Like I've never seen it, but I know that Darth Vader is Luke's father.
Bro, you spoil it for the audience.
Anything that ages well is a classic. Like, for example, the original Ben 10 series.
The original Ben 10 series.
That came out in 2005, which is older than some people are watching this episode.
Yeah.
Shut up, Bilal Kurban. I think that's considered a classic. What do you guys say is an underrated classic? Something that isn't really talked about enough, but if you were to watch it today, something old.
Underrated classic?
Yeah, like for example, okay, this isn't underrated, but I'm using it as an example. The movie The Thing.
Yeah. No.
That's no one really talks about it today, but when I watched it, that movie was sick, and I think it should get more attention.
See, that's an interesting case because The Thing wasn't even considered a classic. Like no one, the film bombed. Like people hated that movie when it first came out, right?
Yeah.
And it kind of became a classic later. I don't know what's an underrated classic. Ali, give me an underrated classic.
Underrated classic.
By the way, shout out Ali. He's our cameraman and the man behind all the magic for these episodes.
The Mummy.
The Mummy?
The Mummy. Brendan Fraser's The Mummy. I feel like it's an underrated classic. When it came out, it was a big thing. When it came out, it was a big thing, and then now I feel like people don't really hear about it anymore. But I feel like it's an underrated classic. It's a good film. It's not like the best film, like obviously not, but like it's a good film for its time. And it's to me it's an underrated classic. Yeah.
I saw something about Family Guy, which I know is a controversial show, but it's undeniably it's a very popular show. It's had great success, but the first few seasons, it was a bomb too. Like no one watched it, and it only ever found its second life through DVD sales, reruns and DVD sales. and then that was so good that it came back to life after it was killed off, and that happened several times. So I guess that's a fair point. Sometimes the classic isn't appreciated in its time.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's a necessity for it to be a classic.
I don't think so either, but
Okay, so in terms of TV shows, does it have to be good throughout the entire thing for it to be a classic? So, for example, let's say we fast forward like 10 years or 20 years, and a show like The Flash that was only good for the first 3 seasons out of the 9, then the rest were just garbage.
Yeah.
Would that be considered a classic, or does the?
I think it needs to be like. I think if you're gonna have to requirement, it needs to be popular, but it also has to be good for majority of its run.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? Like Community, bro.
Community was amazing.
Community is a great show. Like I would say it was majority good for. It was good for the majority of its run.
I think until Troy left, then it went downhill
that's like
from
season
there.
4, and then seasons 5 and 6 were not that good, but most of it was good, so it counts as a classic.
Even season 5 and 6 weren't bad. Like, they were like still enjoyable. We're still waiting on the movie.
Like
like 6 seasons in a movie.
I mean, the textbook example of this is The Office, right?
Like, I never watched The Office.
The Office is actually really good. Like,
I've never watched The Office.
It's your stereotypical sitcom, but it does all the cliches right. Like it's not very original. I'm just gonna be. Of course, it's not. They borrowed it from the UK version. It's not a very original show, but it's a very good show in its execution. However, those last 2 seasons in particular were just they didn't have a reason to exist.
When Michael left,
you should just end the show.
They did seem a bit out of place. I wouldn't say they were bad though. I think maybe a better example would be Big Bang Theory, which outlived its welcome by like 3 or 4 seasons at least.
I would say even more than that, like 5 or 6 seasons.
I guess you just never liked it.
The spin-off was so much better.
Young Sheldon?
Young Sheldon was so much better than The Big Bang Theory. Young Sheldon is honestly significantly better than The Big Bang Theory for me.
Rip George.
Rest in peace. Did you see in the final episode where he attended his own funeral?
No.
It was funny. It was
spoiling the show.
You said rest in peace. He just did say rap.
I've never seen the show.
We also know what happens in Big Bang Theory. But no, it was like a joke. He dressed up as like some nanny, and he was in the back in the shot when they were looking over the church. He was he attended the actual actor, then his own funeral. It was pretty funny.
Yeah, I looked up one thing, like another example. Breaking Bad. The pilot for Breaking Bad bombed hard. It was not well received, but then they made the show anyways. And you may know more than I do, but did it do well in the first season or first few seasons?
I would say yeah. I'd say like to be fair, the channel it was on
by season 2.
Like the channel it was on, like AMC. It's hard to gauge at numbers, right? Because a lot of the good shows now they didn't have as much like higher viewership counts because people would just watch them on other services, right? Like so it's hard to gauge, for example, like how many people watch like Breaking Bad on AMC when it was on television compared to say like 10 years ago. How many people watched The Sopranos, right? Yeah. Sopranos definitely had way more viewers because people watch more TV. But yeah, I think Breaking Bad was like if you saw the first episode of Breaking Bad, if you were one of the few people watching it, you knew it was a hit. Like first episode, like that, I was caught on. So it was popular from the start for sure.
When it comes to Breaking Bad too, this just reminds me of Top Gear. They would have guests, like on each episode they'd have a guest, a celebrity guest. And for one of the episodes was Aaron Paul. And he had massive applause. And then Clarkson mentioned that he was on a show that never officially aired on TV in the UK. And yet he was one of their most anticipated guests.
Ladies and gentlemen, Aaron Paul! Have a seat. All right. Have a seat. It is strange to have on a guest from a show that was never on British TV.
Yeah.
who's now in a film that isn't even out yet. Yeah. Everybody's
And so that's a good point that people like with newer shows, it's harder to gauge how popular they are because
Yeah.
they're on so many different platforms
Yeah.
and they're pirated.
Yes.
Check out our last episode.
I never watched the Breaking Bad, so I can't say much on that.
Bro, what are you doing in this podcast, bro?
Bro, do you want to get slapped on camera?
Preferably not. Bro.
Okay, so we're not gonna go to that segment just yet.
Okay.
Um,
Want to talk about video games?
See,
classic video game.
classic video game. But here's the thing, right? How you determine the classic video game, like
A game you can still play and enjoy today.
I know, but what I was gonna say is the length of time for a video game to become classic. Like for example, like GTA 5. GTA 5 is a classic, but it's not even that old if you could take that time interval and compare it to films, right?
I
Like
guess.
think about
yeah.
movies that came out 2013. Would you say that some of those are classics?
But
No.
The thing is, movies have been made for over a century now.
Mhm.
Video games, I think like maybe in the 70s they started, but the way
time
they
is relative.
exist now with like consoles and everything, that goes back to the 90s. Like, so it's a changing landscape
Yeah.
a lot more so than
I
movies.
also wouldn't call GTA 5 a classic because it's still being worked on. Like, I think a classic is a game that's concluded, it's finished, there's no more updates, there's no more, like, it still has it can have a community still, but there shouldn't be any updates, any working on, like, GTA 5 is still alive, it still has a large player count, and and it will still have a large player count until GTA 6 comes out,
But
whenever I have kids.
Is that really a necessity? So like, there's a lot of old games, like MMOs in particular, like EVE Online, old school RuneScape, World of Warcraft. Like these games are like 20 plus years old, right? Would you not consider those games
What's the one
classic?
with penguins?
Club Penguin.
Club Penguin.
Club
Yeah.
Penguin.
But see, here's the thing though,
Pet Society on Facebook.
Pop
Shout out.
Tropica, bro. Pop Tropica.
Pop Tropica was amazing, but here's the thing: RuneScape,
Yeah.
the original one, got shut down. The new one we play today is not the same one.
No, but I mean, that's right. Okay, but can't you argue the same thing for GTA? Because there is still a version of old school RuneScape that exists. People do play old school RuneScape.
Yeah, but it's not officially supported. That's the difference.
That's the difference?
Yeah.
I mean, same thing. What about WoW, for example? Another example.
World of War?
World of
Is it
Warcraft.
still being supported? I don't know.
There's old school. There's classic WoW, which is still a thing, and there's like WoW, which is how WoW has progressed over the years. They keep updating and stuff like that, right? So does it need to be concluded really necessary
For me, yes.
for you, Adam?
I don't think so, because sometimes if it's not concluded, it's still ran for a long time. Like I think by the early 2000s, it was established that Seinfeld is a classic.
Yeah.
Even though it was still airing.
Yeah.
It started in the 90s. So I don't think that's. I wouldn't say that's a hard like condition that it should meet.
Okay. It's sufficient but not necessary. You can say. Else that term.
Sufficient but not necessary. I don't think it's sufficient because not everything that's concluded is a classic.
Sure,
Or
but
is it necessary, not sufficient? It's neither, to be honest.
but for me, a classic is something you can be like nostalgic about. Like I guess with GTA, it would only be the campaign mode that's nostalgic or a classic, not the whole game.
I mean, I guess nostalgia can sometimes be in the eyes of the beholder. There's like a lot of things you look at as a kid that are like, wow, I like this, and then you watch it again, and like, wow, this is trash. Like the Disney Channel shows. Anyone watch those shows when you were younger?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Bro, some of those they did not age well at all, including the
No.
Nickelodeon shows too, bro.
I thought of it also in the context of like YouTubers.
Yes, that's actually a better example.
Those old, like the Human Cake trilogy.
Oh my god.
That's slop YouTube. That's awful. It's disgusting.
Well, you liked it as a kid, Leafy.
As a kid, Leafy is Here. Leafy is Here was the shit back then.
Yeah,
everyone wanted to be Leafy.
exactly.
Yeah. But he's now looking back, he's such a loser.
He's such a loser. Like he actually is. Bro, we're gonna get like added by Leafy now. And these fucking idiots.
He's
doing
gonna
the
come back.
podcast.
He's gonna come back from the dead.
He's gonna have a create a new YouTube
Wait.
channel. First thing to do is just attacking us, bullying us.
Wait. Who's beefy?
Leafy
Leafy is Here.
He's a kid. He was the guy who would like bully people Like just random people online, and then you'd have like the CS:GO gameplay in the back.
Surfing, yeah.
We should have CS:GO surfing gameplay here actually.
Next episode.
Next episode.
We don't acknowledge that.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, we don't know.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Badly behaved guest.
Oh my god, sorry guys.
We're gonna start Google Forms for any guests soon, so keep an
Yeah.
eye out on that.
I'm getting replaced midway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
I got a question.
Would you consider Yazan a classic? For the audience, keep it to yourself. But we're asking you guys now.
I mean, we'll see.
Okay.
You gotta give it time.
Ask your question.
What is something that you think is? What is the difference? What is the difference between this, like something that's classic and something that's outdated? And like, what do you think is between is something that is people think is classic, but it's actually outdated?
I guess an example for this for me would be the Uncharted games. So the first game, a lot of people look at it, oh, it's a classic. It started the series. It gave Sony a big highlight to what games should be like. But if you try to play that game now, you're gonna kill yourself. Like it's actually,
Is it?
it does not live up.
Really?
Like
I love
playing the game, yeah, I loved it back then too.
Yeah.
But if you try to play it now, the gameplay mechanics just don't hold up. Uncharted 2, on the other hand, you can still play it today and then have a great time.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's more classic, and Uncharted is more nostalgic. The first one.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Adam?
It needs to be something that's not too. It shouldn't be like fast foody, if that makes sense. Like it should be something more unique, something because like
Is what you're going to say is that like they start a trend and then there's this trend. This trend is considered classics. Are you saying something that's like the knockoff of something that is classic and people think that's classic but it isn't? Do you get what I'm trying to say?
yes, kind of.
So like you know how people like the film Halloween,
Yeah.
right? That's actually a classic film, and then you got all these shit knockoffs with like really bad, really sloppy horror movies about killers. Like some people would say, oh, those are classics like Friday the 13th, but they're just like really poorly made, outdated films that took advantage of like a trend. Is that what you're trying to say when you say fast food?
Yeah, kind of like
Give an example.
an example. Like Breaking Bad.
Okay.
That's the formula. It's a western, but it's also the first western that's been produced in decades.
Okay.
And so for the time being it's kind of new.
Mhm.
And then you can have other shows mimicking it.
Mhm.
You can probably provide some examples,
Mhm.
but those will never be like, they'll never be classics.
Okay. But that doesn't make them outdated. Like okay. What my example of something that's like it's hard to say if it's something that's outdated or something that's classic. Like, can you watch black and white movies? I can watch black and white movies.
I can't.
To some extent.
I can watch black and white movies.
I don't mess with Charlie Chaplin.
But no. But this, I was just gonna go into it. That's a difference because the movies I would really struggle to watch sometimes are not black and white movies, but like silent movies.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like movies that didn't have any sound back in the 20s, like those
Yeah.
Charlie Chaplin movies.
Yeah.
Like I sometimes really struggle to get through them because like
Actually,
I mean,
they didn't have sound systems back then, so we'd have a whole orchestra in the theater.
yes, they would have like
Yeah.
and it's like that's for me that's really foreign. That's really weird.
Yeah.
People consider these like classics, but personally, I don't know. It seems just outdated. In my opinion.
Okay, better example than the Breaking Bad one.
Yeah.
The Hangover trilogy.
You don't think those are classics?
No.
The first
Do you
one is.
think that the second and third one
No.
are no?
No, that's actually a perfect example. The
Yeah.
first one is
Okay.
it's a classic. If like 2000s comedies, that's a
Mhm.
classic. You have
Yeah.
to watch Hangover if you're going to watch movies like Super Bad. What's the other one? Forgetting Sarah Marshall. Like all those comedies and stuff. You got to watch The Hangover. But the second and third one, it didn't even need to be a trilogy. Out of all the movies, why is that a trilogy?
Yeah. I think the second one was not bad, but the thing is, it's like the Flanderization,
So,
and so the third one, it just got to be too much. Like, what's his name, the dentist guy?
Yeah.
Like at the end, he gets like a boob job, and it's all too much.
You know what?
I've
That's
watched those movies. What the hell happens?
he's too pure, bro. Too pure. Sorry, this is this? Can we swear on this podcast?
Preferably not. My dad watches.
Sorry,
I'm a Marwan.
sorry, I'm a Marwan.
B word is okay. Maybe avoid the F word.
Even bro, just no colors, bro. There's no swear.
No swearing. Okay, it's halal show. After we
Yeah.
just talked about the Hangover children.
Halal movie night. Inshallah, we find Nemo.
Inshallah, we'll find Nemo.
Yeah, no, but that flanderization is a key. Actually, to go back to your point, like when shows stop being classic and when they kind of die, flanderization is a big problem, in my opinion. Do you want to explain what flanderization is?
Yeah, maybe this is better.
Yeah.
Flanderization. It comes from Ned Flanders on The Simpsons, and it's basically the idea of you have a character, and then all their characteristics become more extreme as the show goes on, to make them still relevant. Or so, like Flanders, he starts off as like this neighbor Christian, kind of nosy, and then it grows into like
this
religious fundamentalist psychopath.
This guy goes from like your common like very religious neighbor to like what he says, a religious fundamentalist psychopath who wants to enforce Christian law in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
I don't know, bro. But that's a good point. Like another example is like, you guys ever seen the show Friends?
Yes.
To be honest, the more I watch that show, the less of a classic it becomes for me. It actually gets worse on every viewing. But the character of Joey,
yes,
okay, this guy goes from like, he's a normal person, but he's not like the smartest guy. But he's not an idiot. Like this guy is like he is an actor, right? He's a working class person, you could say, right? Then he just becomes a full blown like moron later in the show. Like this guy. Well, I have an example in my head of like how bad this went, but like the taxi thing. Thank you, Ali. So in the show, he gets his own show, Joey. And in the first scene, he's like, "Oh, I can't wait to go to LA." And the taxi driver is like, "Oh, so why are you in Dallas?" So I'm like, "Come on, man. No one's. Can I say the R word?"
No.
Absolutely not.
Okay. So season 1.
By R word, he means randomness. Like it just.
Yeah.
It's so random for someone to be in Texas when they're supposed to go to LA. You know.
Season 1, Joey is just, as you said, he's a normal guy. Yeah. And then they progressively make him dumber and dumber and dumber. Even like Phoebe. Phoebe has some odd interests, but then they just make her like she's tripping on acid all the time.
Yes.
Monica too. She likes to keep a clean house.
Ross just gets more insecure. Everyone's assumes progress.
Yeah. So that's a good example of flanderization. Yeah. And also the thing you said about doing more for a show so it stays relevant. Yeah. When they had the whole arc with Joey and Rachel.
Oh yes.
So that was definitely a bit to keep relevance.
That was the lowest moment for Friends.
I didn't watch Friends.
Bro, this guy.
The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air though.
Fresh Prince of Bel-Air?
That was genuinely one of my favorite shows of all time.
Here's the thing. I remember the first 3 seasons of that show more fondly than the last 3. Like before they went to uni, when they were just in the house, in high school, I remember that show way more vividly. I don't know.
Not really. Not for me.
Not for you?
I think maybe just the shift.
What I meant from the first aunt, the first actress who played the aunt.
Yeah, the first 3 episodes. Yeah, because there's 6 seasons, and every 3 seasons they switched it.
They switched it. I remember the first aunt way more vividly. Anyway.
Okay, yeah. I do remember the first aunt way more than the second one. Yeah, 100%. But the show as a whole, it was a very great show because throughout the whole show, you see their character development, and it doesn't play too much on like one characteristic, like you guys said. Like they don't start off normal and become dumb. Extreme. If anything, they start off extreme. Like Will is this extreme guy from the hood who doesn't know any better, and Carlton is this country club, rich guy, and then over time, over the show, you see them
Maneuver to the middle.
maneuver to the middle. Yes.
Yeah.
Like Will becomes more responsible.
Yeah.
Carlton breaks more rules.
Yeah.
Like that one scene where they got stuck. And this.
In the jail.
It wasn't in the gym. No, that was the beginning. I'm talking about the time when they were driving. They were driving to the college to check it out. Will, Jazz, and Carlton, and they wanted to charge. They wanted to fill gas.
Yeah.
So the guy was. They didn't have cash on them.
They gambled it.
Yeah. So
okay.
Carlton started gambling it.
Yeah.
Even though they wanted enough money to pay for the gas and leave, Carlton was there.
Yeah.
You wouldn't expect that from someone who's like grew up the same way Carlton did.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't expect Will to be the more responsible one.
Yeah.
That's what I don't know. That was genuinely one of my best favorite shows of all time. I think I've rewatched it like 4 times.
Okay. From you guys' experience, what will become a classic
That's on the air right now.
on the air, or something that was on there 5 years ago? That's something that will become a classic later down the line.
Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Brooklyn Nine-Nine?
Brooklyn Nine-Nine, definitely, actually.
Okay, fair enough.
Spider-Man No Way Home.
You think so?
Yeah.
I mean,
Especially how Marvel fell off after that movie.
do you think Marvel movies will become classics in general?
Some of them, definitely.
Sorry, my brother's like the ultimate Marvel fanboy, so like he'll always
Thing is, though, it's a good, some of them, because there are just so many of
There's
them.
so many of them.
Yeah.
They can't all become classics.
They can't, no. So only the really good ones, like the second Captain America, the first Iron Man. I think the first Iron Man is all the classic.
Yeah.
The third Thor movie. And Infinity War will definitely become a classic. Black Panther.
I know, to be fair, Infinity War will become a classic simply just from the hype and like the.
Not even just the movie.
like
the movie itself, like the way they managed to give enough screen time for all like 30 plus main characters. The way they managed all that without having a single character have too much spotlight. Of course, other than Thanos, I think that was it was a greatly directed movie.
Okay.
From someone who doesn't watch Marvel movies, you have to agree.
Fine. I'll
Do you think like foreign media could ever be a classic in the English speaking world? I'm thinking specifically of Squid Game.
Oh, like that.
I think you're gonna say Parasite.
Parasite too, that's another good example.
Here's the thing. I'm trying to think of they've been. I can't say. What do you count as foreign? Would you say a movie not made in Hollywood but still spoken in English count as foreign media?
No, something that's foreign is something you need to read subtitles for.
Okay.
I mean, the original Godzilla movies are classics.
That's the movie we watched, Godzilla. What was it?
0 minus 1.
-1.
-1, yeah.
Yeah. That was. I mean, that was probably the best Godzilla movie I've seen probably the best movie that came out in the last 10 years. Most of them have been pretty atrocious.
And do you think it's something that people in 30 years would go back and watch?
I think so.
Definitely.
Definitely, because I mean, with the advent of like globalization, people are discovering all these foreign media franchises that that just wouldn't have ever taken off back then, right?
It's not even just that. It's also something like Squid Game you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
It has so many games and challenges that are coming out of it, and to this day, people are still
making videos.
Mr. Beast just uploaded a video the other day of his own Wait, it's the second season came out, right?
It's gonna come out in a few days.
It's gonna come out in a few days, yeah. So it hasn't even come out yet, and everyone's making challenges already. So there's all the involvement inside the show that people in the future will go back and watch it, right? And all these, I'm sure people who grew up now watching it now, when they become older, they'll show their kids the challenges they made. Let's say one of them becomes a teacher, they're gonna have these cookies where you have the toothpick and you're carving out an umbrella. So the kids will be like, "Yo, what is this? What are we doing this?" They'll show them the show.
I just got a really good thought. Could you say the way we consume media now, from the media that we consume, could it ever really become classic simply because of how saturated it is? Like for example, TikTok reels. Could that stuff ever emit some kind of like sense of the TikTok
That's
is
too hard to
classic.
tell.
No.
Like, yeah, I don't know where we're headed, or where like how we're gonna view media later on. Because I feel like everything's so instant now. I don't see it changing. You know what I mean? Like, for example, we grew up watching TV, and it was
Not only that,
you had to like wait for the show to come out. You had to wait for the episode to come out.
but here's the
But
thing.
now we have access to everything.
But here's the thing. It's hard to say if something becomes a classic simply because we don't consume all the same media anymore. We're all living in our own different bubbles, right?
Yeah.
This is why there isn't very like if you go back to the 80s and the 90s, they have like unified events where people would just watch this one event. Like all people like Seinfeld finale, it was watched by like I think it was like a statistic said a third of the American population. That is visibly seen on the streets of America. Like a third is a lot of like people in traffic. There isn't going to be anything like that anymore because people are all consuming their own different
That's
things.
actually
Their
true. Yeah.
bubbles,
Nobody's watching the same shows anymore. I never thought about it like that.
Yeah,
Okay.
like I bet like shows like The Flash. I mean, that's kind of relevant only in our bubble. Like, how many of your friends do you think has actually seen The Flash?
I haven't
Not
seen
a
it.
lot.
Yeah.
Not a lot.
Yeah, so they're wondering. Hell, even Young Sheldon. Young Sheldon.
I don't know. I just you guys, to be honest. I don't know
Yeah.
anyone else who was watching Young Sheldon.
Yeah, so like, what is the metric for something that is considered a classic? It's going to change because if we don't all consume the same media, we all, we all don't like, we aren't into shared experiences anymore. Like, oh, everyone's got to see the Phantom Menace in theaters in 1989. Like,
But I feel like some things are viewed by like Oppenheimer. That's definitely gonna become a classic because
here,
everyone
I
watched
agree.
that.
Oppenheimer and Barbie are the exception to that.
Yeah,
This is why the theaters really hype them up because they're like everyone can
because
watch these
everyone
movies.
from every bubble was watching it. Like
Yeah.
even the bros were watching Barbie.
Yeah.
It's like the opposite demographic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was thinking though of because shared viewing still exists, but it's almost completely like it's relegated to sporting games,
It's true. It's
like
true.
matches.
Like
do you
World
think?
Cup. No,
Yeah.
I don't care the World Cup.
But do you think specific games can be classics?
Like
is-
video games?
No, like soccer games
Yes.
or
Definitely.
you think
Definitely.
Definitely. Like the World Cup final 2022 will
Yeah.
definitely go down as a
Yeah.
classic.
I mean, again,
Portugal versus Spain, Netherlands. I'm sorry, Belgium versus Japan. Like there are so many games that are just gonna be classics.
Yeah, I agree.
Can you name a classic from many decades ago?
Like, how far do you want to go?
Like at least 30 years ago.
30 years ago?
Algeria versus Germany for me.
You said 30 years
Oh,
ago.
30 years ago.
Like in the time span or from 30 years ago, literally?
No, like from 30 years ago, literally.
Okay, so 30 years ago is 1994. The World Cup final between Brazil and Italy in 1994. You know why? It gives me joy since I don't like Italy that much. Like the footballing team, okay? It is a beautiful country with great cuisine, okay? But the 1994 World Cup final in the U.S., Italy versus Brazil. Roberto Baggio, you know who that is? He's he had a ponytail. This guy was known for his penalties. He was a penalty maestro. He was an expert in penalties, right? It was his penalty that has to go in to keep Italy in this penalty shootout in the World Cup final. He goes for it. He misses. He hits it over the crossbar. He goes down in shame. The Brazilians start screaming in adulation. That's a classic.
Okay. How about sports other than soccer? Since
Other than
it's
soccer? Oh,
it's the biggest sport in the world by a huge margin.
yes.
Yeah.
Do you think like less popular can be classics?
Less popular as in
Like, do you think they're
basketball, or even less popular
like UFC fights?
or
Or like-
UFC fights?
See, but UFC is another exception because, as Dana White said, you know what? There's divisions in which sports are liked across the world. Soccer is unanimously liked by everybody except for people in the U.S. and Canada. But though that's soccer's exception. Ice hockey is very popular in Northern Europe and this part of the world. American football, the same thing, right? Only North America, right? But fighting, since it appeals to like every single race, ethnicity, religion, whatever it is, and not only that, it's mixed martial arts. So you got people who do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu from Brazil, and then you got people who do Muay Thai from Southeast Asia. You got all these different peoples, boxing in Russia, wrestling in Russia. So UFC, in my opinion, would be a good example because it would, in my opinion, develop like a sense of shared viewing and a shared perception that this match is a classic.
Yeah, more and more people are getting into like. I'm looking into getting into like just watching the UFC. Like it's a very interesting.
Yeah, no. UFC's amazing.
Yeah.
I love the UFC.
Do either of you watch racing, like Formula E, Formula One?
No.
That's
No.
okay.
No.
Then skip this part.
Have you? So,
NASCAR?
what about you? Like, you don't watch sports, right?
No.
Only on like big occasions like the World Cup and whatnot.
Yeah.
Is there a moment that you remember from those games?
Uh,
Any game that even from like the last World Cup, it doesn't matter.
I mean, I remember one. I remember it's because it's recent and it was like surprising when it happened. The Saudi versus Argentina game.
Yeah.
But other than that, I really remember nothing from that, like World Cup.
Okay.
I feel like, wait, Adam, you're like, in the grand scheme of the entire globe, you're kind of the exception.
I am the exception. This is why,
Yeah,
like,
so
it's-
your opinion is valid, bro. It's not. No. What?
Okay.
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah, your opinion.
okay. Moving on.
Moving on. Over that. I do have a question, but
What's up?
it's very deep. It's very like it's not personal. Okay, bro.
Ask away, Mr. Politician.
Damn. Okay. See, we're always. I feel like. I'll give you something that you would understand in particular. I'll frame it in a way that you're gonna like it. Okay. You're watching The Sopranos right now,
Okay.
and there's a scene later down the line. It doesn't spoil anything, but Tony says to Paulie. He said, when because they're always talking about memories of what like they used to do back in the 80s, the golden age of the mafia. And then Tony says something to Polly that really kind of struck me. He's like, remember when is the lowest form of conversation you can have with a person. What do you guys think about this? Like this, I feel like this is kind of relevant now because everything we do is so it's so obsessed with the past. Like I read the statistic where it's like all the big hit movies of the 20th century, majority of them were original content. They weren't prequels, they weren't sequels, they weren't like based off books or anything like that. If you look at like now in the 21st century, majority of the biggest hits have all been like based off things that have been done in the past. Like franchises, media that's from the past.
I think it's because now it's just so fast moving.
You think that?
There's so much media. There's any idiot can start a podcast.
Yeah.
But it's funny you should mention that. I was watching New Girl the other day, and one of the episodes, Schmidt says all movies are sequels now, and it like that came out probably like 8 years ago now. But it's true.
It's true. It's more true now than it was back then. Probably.
Like back then, it was hyperbole. Now it's actually true.
Actually true. I mean, like how many remakes?
It's too risky.
Sequels?
It's too risky to try something new because everyone's clinging on to something, especially with how limited time they have. Like for example, I work part-time. I don't even work full-time, and I wouldn't try out a game with like brand new mechanics I've never been seen before. Like I just want to know something I'm familiar with. I want to sit down.
The new Call of Duty
Play.
game versus new FPS franchise that
Yeah.
I take the risk on, but Call of Duty safe.
Exactly, yeah. Like for example, X Defiant didn't really do anything wrong, but it died because everyone was just playing Call of Duty instead.
But isn't that kind of tragic? Like we don't.
It is tragic, but as he said, but especially after COVID, sense of time just got flown out the window. Like I would wake up early and I would stay up the whole day, but I would look back. What did I do today? Nothing. Like everything just went by so fast.
That's true, but like I feel like
Maybe just becoming an adult as well.
Yeah, that could be the case, but like I feel like things shouldn't be like stalled this badly. Like you know what I mean? Like we don't. Our perception of time has changed, and I don't feel like you see much change anymore. Like in terms of the culture, like we've had great technological change, but not much cultural change. Like did we play GTA 4? You guys?
Yeah.
That game?
No, I
So
not into video games, not into sports.
This guy, but in that game, GTA 4.
Yeah.
I played that game. It's 16 years old now, which is kind of crazy to think. 2008 was 16 years
Yeah.
ago. And you play that game, and the game doesn't feel that different. Like the setting of the game doesn't feel that old. Like these are cars that people still drive. These are people dressed in the way like that's very similar, right?
Yeah.
Overall, nothing much has changed. Especially if you compare that to say like GTA Vice City, right? Vice City, you can tell this is the 1980s. Everyone's wearing 80s style. You can tell this came from like decades back, right? And that game came out 2002, and the game itself was placed in 1986. That's 16 years, and you could feel the difference. But here, we don't.
Actually, side note on Vice City, the time difference between when the game came out and today is longer than the time difference between the game setting and the game itself.
Yeah, but like I don't feel that it's all looks the same. It's as if like we're living in like someone said it. We're living in like the 1000th month of the year 2000 or something, because nothing has really changed that much.
I feel like it's also just we lost our motivation to make anything new, and any new resource just leads to new ways of laziness.
Mhm.
Like AI had the potential to revolutionize so many things, but now everyone's just getting lazy with it. Like everyone do you know the Coca-Cola AI commercial?
I actually don't. Kind of.
It just looks awful.
It just looks awful.
It looks so like it was obviously made with AI. It looks so awful. And Coca-Cola used to have, it's like known for having great commercials. Don't drink, by the way. It's boycott. But anyways,
not that I'm sponsored.
but yeah, what was I gonna say? I feel like nobody wants to try anything new, and that's why everything looks the same. Like even cars that come out today look the same as they like. For example, in the early 2010s, that's when designs shifted for cars, and then we've been stuck on that since then. Like if I showed you a Honda Civic from 2013 and a Honda Civic from 2021, would you know the difference? No.
And everything. There's also something that happened now with cars is there's a lot of this like classic styling where they bring back something that was dead.
Yeah.
So there's the Jeep, which has always been around but always looks the same. There's the Bronco, which is supposed to look like it's from the 70s.
It's like 3D. It comes back every 30 years.
Yeah. And so even like nothing is original anymore.
Yeah, but that's like that mentality, in my opinion, is very problematic. Like there is a good obsession in the past, and there's a bad obsession.
It is, but here's the thing: they make the money.
I understand.
You know what I mean?
No,
like,
I'm not. The reasons you're citing are very valid. Like the laziness as a reason.
I'm against it.
Yeah.
I want new things.
Yeah.
But you understand it.
I understand why it's happening. Like for example, every game that's coming out now is a remake.
Mm-hmm.
If you watch the Game Awards, half the list were remakes, like Silent Hill 2, Final Fantasy. Like Final Fantasy, I understand because that came out in like 1991. But the other games, like why is it The Last of Us got remade like 5 different times?
Yes. No.
Why? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like no, it's but again, it's kind of tragic. But like, what is a good obsession with the past, and what is a bad obsession with the past?
I mean, a good obsession is just references.
Okay.
Yeah, like having something new, but with some. Like for example, you mentioned how they're making cars look like they used to before. No, make a new design, but have it themed or have some sort of reference to the back. I think that's good.
Like there's the new like Land Cruiser. It has the round headlights.
Yeah.
That are supposed to look like the Land Cruisers from the not the 70s, like the 60s and the 50s.
Yeah.
But the rest of it is just a regular modern SUV.
Yeah.
And so that's like a taste of the past instead of just fully relying on the past.
Yeah.
But like, do you think it's just why do you think what is about like life today that makes people look to the past so much? Like
it's depressing.
Do you think like what about it is? Do you think it's for me? What I thought it was like the overabundance of things makes them wish. What makes them make people wish they could go back to a time where like things weren't as abundant, but what you had, you appreciated. Like to be honest, I Spotify is convenient, but part of me really hates Spotify.
Why?
I just don't think it's not. Do you think it's natural to consume music like this? Like people, like I just go on like my like songs playlist. I feel like a DJ for doing that. Back then, people would like spend so much of their money just to buy an album, and then they would just listen the shit out of that album. Sorry guys, that's why. But they listen the crap out of that album, and they would appreciate it, right? Because there's a certain you're not taking it for granted. You feel like you earned it, right? You're given everything now, and it's kind of like it's not very satiating, you could say, for lack of a better term.
I can feel Yazan kind of. He's going towards mentioning that he drives a manual, so
Oh, yes.
everyone. Yazan drives a manual.
car.
His car can still play cassette tape, so you can still have fun with your work to listen to music.
No, but is my point is not you don't think it's valid or no?
It's valid, but I don't think it's the reason why everyone's trying to cling to the past.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think it's just like I said, it's depression. Like number one, financially,
Financially.
people are struggling to afford anything.
So they look back to the days where like they had
Where everything was supposedly easier.
Mhm.
Another thing is
software engineer.
I
It's
know.
gonna be like
another thing is I want to mention is that we also struggle with processing how the world is because now we can see everything.
Mhm.
Like if you were to ask, you can go around anywhere, ask any single person, they'll know about what's happening in the Middle East.
Mhm.
Go back to the 80s and ask a random person in Canada,
Ignorance.
do you know what's happening in Palestine?
Yeah. Ignorance.
They're
is
gonna
bliss.
say Palestine what? Like what are you saying? Like what are you saying?
It was
Like
something you read on the newspaper. You're very disconnected.
yeah, but everything. So I feel like people don't know how to process it. They don't know. Like for example, sometimes I would just
So you think
I would feel like I'm taking what I have for granted, but I also don't like everything I have at the same time. So just
do you think nostalgia is like a coping mechanism for people? Okay,
Yeah.
I agree. Nostalgia is a coping mechanism for people.
it definitely is for me.
And you got an opinion?
Yeah, I got it. Well, there's a quote that once I heard that goes like, "You don't know the value of a moment till it's gone." So that's a very famous quote. However, what I'd like to add on to people is, yes, people have an attachment to the past because people naturally love what makes them feel comfortable. People don't like the future because it frightens them. Sometimes people attach themselves to the past because it makes them feel comfortable, but sometimes attachment to the past can actually lead to depression, like you said, because you're refusing to move on. So what I always tell people is that don't think too much about the future because it will scare the crap out of you. Don't think too much about the past because you'll never move on. Just live in the present, live in the now. That's why they call it the present, because it's a gift.
Yeah.
Live in the moment that we're in right
Long
now.
live Kung Fu Panda.
Like living in this moment right now, and think a little bit about the future. Obviously, remember the past so you don't repeat the mistakes, but don't get attached to either. That's what I tell people.
But here's the thing, like, I think there's a difference. I told you this before. I think there's a difference between the nostalgia trip and the nostalgia trap. You know what I mean?
Expand.
Okay, so like people could like go down on like things from their life. They could say oh man, I haven't seen this in 10 years. I haven't played Halo in 15 years. Man, I would like to play Halo Reach.
Yeah.
That's like healthy nostalgia.
Mhm.
Like a nostalgia trap is like when you basically overcome so much by the past that like you basically can't face the future, and in essence you basically die inside. You're basically a walking corpse. Like I can never you know what, things were so good back in the day. I can never amount to anything now. There's no point on continuing to be that's like a nostalgia trap. Yeah, I feel like that's really that's I
Yeah,
feel like that's
there's definitely
pervasive.
nostalgia merchants
Yeah.
that like will not be pleased by anything, no matter how good or bad it is,
Mhm.
because the past is just better for them.
Yeah.
Like used car salesmen who want to convince you that 2004 Corolla is a classic now. That's why that's why you should pay 30K for it.
No, but like, what do you guys like? Do you guys remember ever feeling for the first time the sense of nostalgia? Like, do you remember roughly? Or any kind of memory that made you
Probably
nostalgic?
around high school.
High school, you think?
I don't remember the exact memory, but I feel like whenever there's a shift in life, that's when you look back. You know what I mean? Like when I went to high school, I'm like, yeah, like elementary school, I used to play this game. It's no longer a thing. Then when I went to university, like in high school, we used to do this. Now when I graduated, in university, I used to do that.
Like, yeah, like you guys are out of school. Like, you guys must be feeling a bit nostalgic of uni for sure.
The everything apart from the actual academics, yes. Like they're like anything other than the actual reason we go to uni, yes.
Yeah,
I miss all that.
just hanging out in the library.
Yeah, like Walden.
Yeah, spending too much money on food.
Yeah.
Yes, financially bad decisions.
Yeah, just even like taking the bus when it's like snowing outside, and then just like all the sort of like mini adventures in a way.
They are, especially like when, like for example, a good amount of my friends took the 93 because we all lived in the same area. So it was, we would all see each other in the morning on the way to school. I feel like before everyone was able to drive, like I was able to drive and my friends were able to drive, it was also like very fun getting to places.
Yeah.
Now I can't take the bus.
Yeah.
Like I remember
I can't take the bus.
The time we went to Mandarin, and then like he was there. He wouldn't know him by then.
Yeah.
But
it was a whole snowstorm.
It was a whole thing. It was during a blizzard. It was like a 40-minute bus ride and then like a 30-minute walk afterwards.
Yeah.
But I remember that fondly. Like that was such a good memory.
Yeah. Like now, like I used to every single day 1 hour bus to uni, 1 hour bus back. I can't do that anymore.
Yeah.
Like if I'm not getting a ride,
you're just not going.
I'm not gonna go. Like I didn't go to any of my Fensha classes because there was just no ride. I'm not sitting in a bus for an hour.
Fair
Yeah.
enough, I guess. I mean, I don't really like the first time. Like I felt nostalgia the other day. I think two things made me feel very nostalgic. First of all, I was talking to my coworkers, and I'm actually the youngest guy in the office. I'm an 02, and they're all like born in 1990, 91, 89, 86, stuff like that. And they were talking about like, I said, oh, do you guys remember Halo Reach? Playing Halo, like co-op Halo and stuff. Bro, we went off like the next like 10 to 15 minutes yapping about Halo. And it's like, this is a work environment. And, I was like, bro, that was so good back then, 15 years ago, when I was like 7, 8 years old or something, and you had no responsibilities in life. You could just play Xbox 360 all day.
Yeah.
So yeah, I kind of that's at most the nostalgia kind of I feel most of the time.
Also, as humans, we were made to like farm and hunt, not pay taxes. So
yeah, bro.
We're also out of our element. That's how we're depressed.
Yeah, I feel like adulthood. That's. I think you feel a lot of nostalgia. Like, have you guys feeling a lot of nostalgia recently as you your transition from the cusp of adolescence to late adolescence to adulthood?
It's more stress than nostalgia.
Same.
Like I want to say nostalgic. I'm just stressed all the time.
The stress kind of
thing is,
manifests into nostalgia.
Not for me, because remember the thing Ali said about the future and the past. I find myself thinking a lot more about the future
than the past.
Than I do the past.
Like the past is the past. I lived it. I moved on. We had fun.
I'm just worried about.
I'm just worried about the future. Where do we go from here?
So did you say that mentality would be probably? That's a healthy mentality, right? You just said right there. You get stressed.
Normal. I don't think it's healthy. I think it's normal.
Well, yeah, normal as in the sense like, normal is a better word. I agree.
Yeah,
normal is better than healthy. But that's like what normal mentality should be, right? Because you get all this stress, and you know what? Like, just focus on the future. Just focus on the future, as opposed to somebody who receives all the stress and the guy he just thinks about the past all the time. Like, bro,
yeah.
I peaked in high school.
Exactly. I was just about to say I don't want to be one of those people who like peaked in high school.
Yeah.
Because by the way, it's bad. Like
It's
people don't talk
very
about it, but it's bad. Like
27-year-old peaking, like, oh, I'm back in high school. It's like, bro, high school was like 10 years ago.
bro, it's not even just about them talking about their high school. They still act like they were in high school
Yes.
because they never left.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like I had, like I know we spoke about teachers before on this podcast, but there was this one
Kid.
not even she's bro, dealing with her was like dealing with a kid. You know what I mean? Like she would gossip about other students to other students.
Mhm.
We would sit down and we like not we like it would be in a what's it called, like during break. She would pull up transcript of certain students. Yeah, this guy's not making it to uni. Like, bro, how are you a guidance counselor? You know, like
You'll drop the govy.
Right. It's like that's. I feel like what happened to that teacher is like they just became they overcome with like resentment.
it's sad, bro.
Resentment and bitterness.
She didn't have friends outside of work. She was friends with the basketball team and like the kids at school. And she had like 9 cats at home, bro.
No,
Like it was just weird.
That's actually.
You know what I mean? And
That's the worst
I don't
timeline.
want to be like that. Like, okay, I want to move on. I want to start a new life. Yes, every now and then, like, yeah, you know, back in the day we used to play this game, but I don't want to reach a point in life where I was like, oh, I had it good.
Yes. No, but that.
I want to have it good in the future. I had it good in the past, but I also want to have it good in the future.
No, yeah, you're right, because it's just so terrifying. Someone once told me this. I think it was also a guidance counselor told me this. Is like, isn't don't let if be written on your tombstone. Like, as if like, oh, if he hasn't shown you did this, if he hasn't shown you've acted like this, if he, like actually fulfilled his potential in life.
What
right?
if they're a very dangerous word? The 2 words, what if, are very
Yes.
in Islamic sense, very dangerous.
Yeah, like it's that was probably that probably keeps me up a lot. It's like, bro, I gotta. You got to do the best with your life. I don't want to become like that teacher. Oh my God, 7 cats, very resentful towards everybody. That's not a good life, in my opinion.
It's not. It's not.
just
And
not.
it's why I also think about the career choice, because do I really want to be in front of the computer all day? But that's a discussion that we've already had, so we're not going to go over that so much. But yeah,
We're just feeling nostalgic about 2019 job markets.
I'm feeling nostalgic about episode 1, bro. Will our podcast be a classic?
Well, let's make a poll for your audience.
When will our podcast become a classic?
Yeah.
Okay. If this is the last episode we ever make in 27 years, we're gonna think back. Oh, I did that podcast once.
We'll be nostalgic about that podcast.
Yeah.
It's meta. It's like a circle.
Yeah, it's meta.
Yeah. if only we like kept going, you know. If only in 2008, instead of like playing PlayStation, I bought a house.
A house. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, what was I doing?
What was I doing?
I regret. You know what I mean?
Dude,
Why didn't I buy Bitcoin when instead of going to school?
if only I was born into a trust fund.
Yeah, bro.
That's what I'm saying, bro. Like, what was I doing?
See, that's a new type of code.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, my bad, bro. It's actually funny how the economy goes downhill when it's our time to become adults.
Oh yeah, you
Yeah.
know what?
And they call us lazy.
Yeah, a lot of the this is another question. How much of the so-called like of past generations and like their life experiences and like all their just stuff from that era in general, how much of it is actually valid? Do you know what I mean?
What do you mean?
Like, as in, like, you say, oh, content back then, life back then was better, the standard of living back then was better. Is it actually objectively better?
No, I think people just
No.
look at the good stuff and ignore the bad
Exactly,
Yeah.
right?
Like, they were smoking everywhere, even on airplanes.
Yeah.
People were...
Bigotry, racism.
Yeah, like, it was just very bad.
Yeah.
You know what I
You
mean?
couldn't even, like, one example is back in the 80s,
Mhm.
at least like in Lebanon, there would be one phone in the whole neighborhood.
We're
Yeah.
literally at war, yeah.
Yeah, and then you can call, like, and it would be at like the corner store, and that's the only person you can call
Yeah.
if you wanted to talk to anyone in the neighborhood.
But then your parents would still say, like, oh, that's the height of,
Yeah.
Lebanon or something like that. Same thing with my parents, right? You know, they talk about, like, the 80s and 90s in Iraq. I'm like, we were literally at war for both those decades, and we were
Yeah.
starved out. I don't know how you guys... This is their golden era.
It's not even that, but they had to boil water every time they wanted to go shower.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or you shower in cold water.
Yeah, like a real man.
No, but I saw this funny green text. You guys know what green texts are?
No.
It's like people joke around on like 4chan green text and they wrote up these stories, and one of them was like making fun of the boomer mentality that looks down on like generation below them. It's like, oh, you guys have it easy in life. You guys need to work hard and get rich just like what I've become, right?
Yeah.
And it's like literally me, an average boomer. I was born basically after the Second World War. I never had to fight in an actual war. I become 17. I go to Woodstock and I find a 10 out of 10 woman and marry her because she's never met any other man in her life. I get hired off the streets because they don't require a university degree. I get I get work experience in that job. I get a good degree, and with me working that job for a year, I'm able to afford a house, pay for that house completely, pay for a car completely, and then basically sell that house later in the future for retirement and focus on my car collection. These younger generations have it so easy.
What year is this?
Well, this is like a joke about boomers. How like boomers basically they're the ones who got the easy
The
life.
answer is very simple. We just need that time travel. Like this is pretty simple.
Time travel.
Um,
Time travel is actually like
I feel like it's all their fault that we live in times like this, because they were so compliant. They worshipped the government. They worshipped big companies
yes.
that they took advantage of it, and everything became so expensive.
Yes.
But now it's like going backwards.
There's irony. Like the previous generations, they were spoiled, but in a sense, they were spoiled.
They were way more spoiled than we were.
In the West, in particular, I'm not saying like
Yeah.
in our countries.
Sure, yeah.
But in the West, in particular, like the boomers, like they were extremely spoiled.
But it's also going backwards now.
Because I wouldn't say like in our countries, it's not. They weren't spoiled back then, but they're also not spoiled now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe in the Gulf countries.
That's
Maybe if you were Kuwaiti 200 years ago,
what?
that like life wouldn't have been so
Good.
rosy. Yeah.
Imagine being.
Kuwait
go.
in the
I'll
past
go.
50 years.
What are your thoughts on the Gulf War, Yazan? Don't actually answer.
Okay, guys. So I hope you enjoyed our episode.
This is the last. You would be on a list. That's all I can say.
I would be on a list.
Yes, we'd all be on a list just for this episode.
Who's listing us?
Who's watching? Who's watching? Wait, is it recording?
Our FBI.
Phone's dead. No.
Oh my days.
Imagine it was dead.
Okay, so I guess we put a stop here. Yeah. Is there anything else you would like to add before we wrap it up?
I don't know. Like, do you have like a message to the audience type of thing where we're like focus on your
Don't study in tech.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. That's reasonable.
Yeah, don't major in comp sci. Don't major in software engineering.
Bro, just don't go to university, bro. Just go into construction.
Become an
Yeah.
electrician.
Any trade.
Yes,
Yeah,
become an
any trade.
electrician.
Plumber.
All of you become electricians. If
So
you're
you-
currently in tech, quit your job, become an electrician. Let me have your job.
Yeah, well, I'll take it. But yeah, thank you for joining us for this episode. We will see you on the next one.
Yeah, and if you work at Canada Post, refer us when we apply.
If you work at Canada Post, like, what are you doing, bro? I'm waiting for my shit. Anyways,
Anyways,
take it easy.
thank you for watching. Subscribe. 50% of you are not subscribed, so that there's an improvement. It was 60% last time. It's 50% now.
If we get 1,500 views on this one, I will wear a Messi jersey on the next one.
If we get
Eventually.
400 views on this one, I'm gonna have Yazan cook custard in the next one.
Why custard? It's so
No.
random.
I don't have
Dolma.
faith you can cook anything more complicated.
No.
Wow.
Dolma.
Ouch. Ouch.
No.
Damn.
Then we're actually, if anything, if y'all get a decent amount of views, whatever number you pick, on the next one, all right, we all eat Vegemite. You know what that is, Vegemite?
No.
That's disgusting.
It's an Australian delicacy, let's call it.
It's vile.
Okay, guys, for real this time. Thank you for watching and have a great one. See ya.
Subscribe so we can get a third microphone.
Goodbye.
Thank you for tuning in this week too. There were some issues with the audio, That's because it's our first time using the lapel mics, and we were rationing 2 mics for 3 people. But in the future, we'll have enough mics, and the volume was inconsistent. We learned why they're lapel mics. They shouldn't be that close to our mouth. We're gonna stop playing with them because that causes static. But otherwise, thank you for tuning in, and I hope you'll tune in next week as well. Bye.